Welcome to Tent Talk, the podcast with Nancy McCready, where we talk about life under the big tent of God's presence and the provoking process of discipleship. Here we go.
So I want to read this because I want us to talk just a little bit more about the depth of training of what it is that you have to allow for. Because we could just keep shrinking back. We can just keep stepping back. Oh no, please don't require that of me. Oh no, that's too tough. Oh no, there's no way I can ever get all of that done, right? But here's what, and I'm referring back to Spiritual Leadership, written by Oswald Sanders, which I've talked about here a few times on the podcast. But the other day I was doing a prep for some leader meetings with an organization I work with, came across this quote again, and it just fit right in with where we were opening up Module 1 and how important this is. And it says, God gave these leaders gifts and talents that fit the mission, here at NMM we would say assignment, fit the mission, the assignment to which they were called. What raised these men above their fellows was the degree to which they developed those gifts through devotion and discipline. And then it goes right into the section on discipline. And I want you to hear, this is about training. This is about something that comes from inside out. It says, without this essential quality of discipline, all other gifts remain as dwarfs. They cannot grow. So discipline appears first on our list. So before we can conquer the world, guys, what do we have to do? Say it.
First, conquer the self.
That's
there you go.
Is conquer self. If self is going to continuously encapsulate you, imprison you can't go any further, right? And on the other episodes, we're going to talk about this aspect of how does the Father deal with self, right? Is it only my bad self, right, that gets dealt with? What does all of this mean? And so this is so very, very key that we have an understanding. This isn't just about self-discipline. Because many of you listening to this may be in the throes right now of all trying to be self-disciplined in the beginning of the year. The other day, I can't remember what day it is, but I did not know this, but there's actually a day in January that's called Quitter's Day. I want to say it was January 17th. But I don't know, because I quit listening. No, I'm kidding. So I quit. But they said there's a certain day that's called Quitter's Day in January, because everybody makes all these New Year's resolutions, and usually about 2.5 to 3 weeks in, they're like, forget it.
January 10th.
January 10th. Well, that didn't take very long.
10 days.
Only 10 days. Is it called Quitter's Day?
It is called Quitter's Day.
Did you just look it up?
I did, yeah.
I love this.
I saw that.
And I thought, wow, because listen, my friends, you're still going to be loved by God. You could go to heaven, I suppose. But like a maturing son, remember, our assignment here at NMM is not to fluff the pillows of those who do not want to mature. It is to be a provoker, the provoking process of discipleship, right? To say, let us continue on into maturity. And so nobody's asking you to be happy about it and excited and all that. It's like, who would be, right? So this is a part of recognizing when you are willing to allow God to bring you through things that have always caused you to want to quit. You know that is actually a breakthrough that can happen very quietly inside of you. When flesh is throwing a fit, that's crazy. Are they crazy over there trying to make me read all these books? I think, well, first of all, nobody's making you. Just want to tell you, nobody's making you do anything, right? Doors of opportunity open. You're invited in. You get to make the decision without shame, without condemnation, without threat, or without favoritism. You don't get, all the accolades because, you chose to go in. This is a part of, Father, I will allow you to require of me that which you've put in me. Christ is in me. I'm not going to try to get you to do something separate from Him. I want Christ to be formed in me. And that requires not dropping out. That's what Hebrews 12 said. So say something, you guys.
Well, I just think it's just incredible what you were saying in that same section under discipline. He writes this: many who drop out of ministry are sufficiently gifted, but have large areas of life floating free from the Holy Spirit's control. And so we really miss that private practice and what the conductor is saying to us and how he sees our gifts. He sees those things that we lack, and it's never to hold us back or push us back. It's so that we can bring out the full volume and the full sound that he has placed in us. And so it's not about our gift, it's what we're willing to do and submit to what he sees in us. And we're willing to.
That's right. We don't want to deny the Father. It's like, Father, if this is what you're wanting, then we want, right? And that's the very life of Christ. You just listen to the language. I didn't used to talk like that, but as Christ is formed in me, I find myself saying the same things that he said.
Yes.
I find myself longing for the same things he longed for. That's part of what it means of our oneness. We're sharing in his life. So I can't pat myself on the back. Oh, look at how amazingly disciplined I am. Right? It's like, no, I'm sharing in this. So the desires set the discipline, if you will, or the willingness, right, to do that. Alex?
For me, it was in the area of reading.
Yes.
This was a huge one. I'm a man. I grew up as a teenage boy. I didn't read a book until I was age 30. I got through my whole university and teaching career without having to read until I absolutely had to. So for me, that part of the breaking in self was this desire to read that was not from me. I don't have in me the desire to read. And now, what am I now? 46 now, 30 years, so 16 years. If I could probably count the number of books I've devoured in that time and books I go back to. And my dad said this to me just before I came out, oh, you're always reading, you always catch you reading. And yet that would never have been spoken of me as a child or a teenager, ever. All of those English literature exams that I passed without having read the book. And so for me, the whole area of reading was a discipline that I couldn't ever break into myself. I couldn't do it, and I tried several times. It was a work that he did within me, and he opened books for me in the most insane way.
Yes.
And I was the kid that was caught reading under the covers, by my parents all the time. I was very sick as a child, and so my world was filled with books and experiences. But I learned to then take what I was learning and make it a superpower that was not connected to what Christ had done in me and through my life. It was celebrating my good self, which then began to operate in what it did for me, not what it did for God.
Right.
So this is totally taking it, and it's like, no, if I'm not going to hear from him, if I'm not receiving what he's given for me, then it's just a lot of stuff that and you might win Trivia Pursuit, but that really isn't the main focus, is it?
That's right. Or impressing everybody else with how much I know.
Yes.
Because he says, no, it's do you know me?
Yes.
Doesn't he always just like the sword just falls, right? And with one fell swoop, you realize, I'm off the trajectory. I'm over here thinking I am so whip smart and I can pull things out and all that. And it's like, yeah, but is not all of that leading you to me? That's what Jesus said to the Pharisees. You're studying the scriptures as in just study that. But they're meant to do what? Lead you to me.
Yes.
Right? So what does all of our learning, training, discipline do? If it's not leading us to him, for him, from him, about him, right? You just realize, what is all this about?
Yes.
I don't have any interest in doing 60 days of anything, right? I'm not going to school, right? Don't make me, I don't care what college you call it, I'm not going, right? And then you realize, and we talked about this also, is that we're not going to self-harness, but we have been harnessed, like in the yoke with Holy Spirit, but we are allowing Him to lead us. And so as His life in us matures and the training that we allow, I mean, I don't even want to take credit for allowing it, but I know, right? Because I know that He's the one who wills it and performs it, right?
Yes.
He set everything before us. But as a very wise teacher once said, God will put it within your reach, but He will not put it in your mouth. There is this place where I must reach out and pick it up and bring it back to my mouth. But He doesn't put it outside my reach. He doesn't make it adversarial. He doesn't say, go chase it down and I'm going to make you, run all over the place. He does say, if anyone would come after me. And He makes that totally possible by putting His life within us. So any last comment before we end this episode so we can go into the others and continue to talk about this?
I don't know. Dan, have you got anything else?
No, I think I defer back to you, my
I was
friend.
just reading this line. So I've just picked up the book Spiritual Leadership that Nancy, you've been reading from, and I've just read the line, lazy and disorganized people never rise to true leadership.
Okay, now you're going to have to read that again.
Lazy and disorganized people never rise to true leadership.
Yeah. Right, because if we're not willing to let Him lead us, right?
That's right.
This is our number one
right.
track at Symphony College.
right.
Of anything I do here at NMM is we must all continuously enter in for ourselves,
And
right?
We think it's our practice room, but it's His practice room that He calls us into.
That's right, and He's waiting.
That's right.
And He says, I'm going to put you in oneness and in tune with me, but these things are not learned just by much study. They are not known just by much overthinking, but letting Him do it. That's where real understanding comes from. And I would venture to say being with Him and then being with the other members of the orchestra is pretty amazing also, because iron sharpens iron. So it's not this one thing He does, it's the entire way He does it. His ways are perfect. And what I also love as we close out this episode is that He's forming you. You're the weapon. You're the instrument of righteousness. And if He's allowed to form sons, then it's like, well, it's all in there. Like there are 5 tracks to Symphony College, right? But it's not these 5 things that you've got to remember and I've been trying to, to let this unfold, is that they all begin to move together and form together, entering in for yourself, deepening the message, being able to pass this message on to others through discipleship, whatever means possible, the projects, the things that we're building that people can enter in, the structures that will come out of all of this, writing essays, which we're going to do in the next I just can't wait. Guys, make sure you don't miss this next episode, right? Because of just sharing the simplicity of being able to write an essay, a willingness to put it down on paper, a willingness to read it before someone else. See, this is what most of us faint over this. No, I would never do that, right? And that's okay, because we all come that way. No condemnation, but just recognize, like, we're going to let that determine what we're able to do. This is when we see how necessary brokenness is. To break that thing that would say, I just can't do it because I might be embarrassed. Oh, I can promise you you're going to be embarrassed. Oh, I just write it down right now. I should have put it in the whole intake packet. Number 6, sign up to be embarrassed, right? Because you're going to be like, I don't think I can do this. No, you cannot. No one can do it all, right? But He is doing it in us. And all that sounds like pie in the sky until we actually go in with Him. So let me close this episode by reading this. A leader is a person who has learned to obey a discipline imposed from without and has then taken on a more rigorous discipline from within. Those who rebel against authority and scorn self-discipline, or we would say self-control, who shirk the rigors and turn from the sacrifices, do not qualify to lead. I mean, if you listen to that with law ears, that sounds like nothing but performance. But once you're in with him, you realize, why would I expect to do more or be more skilled with absolutely no more training, right? It's like, so that's why the difference, as they were saying, we were quoting earlier, is those who allow him to require out of what he has given. To whom much is given. Much is required. The requirement is to what he's already given of himself in us. Yes, there is sacrifice. Yes, there's training. Yes, discipline for the moment is not joyful. It's painful and grievous. But afterwards, it says, those who are willing to be trained by it, it will yield the peaceable fruit of righteousness. Many of us are attempting to get something that is within us, but without any development. We just want it to fall out of the sky. We just want it to show up. No, he says, no, let me train you as my sons. So we will close out here this episode. Do not miss the next episode, because we are going to continue the conversations from Symphony College right here at the NMM studios of Tent Talk Podcast. See, none of us can say it with a straight face, because that's us sitting here at the table, right, just with our books open and just having a conversation. But that's what Tent Talk is. It's conversations under the big tent of God's presence. So, until next time, my friends, love you all.
For more information on Nancy, please visit nancymccready.com or follow her on social media at NBMcCready.